know some people have engagements that they need to jump off of this call and get on right around 9 a.m. So we will get moving. We had our board meeting last week. The majority of that meeting revolved around really continuing to monitor the finances of the organization. The Economic Alliance is in good financial condition. We're managing liquidity as we go. We're implementing triggers and really monitoring the accounts receivable and how long that continues to kind of be pushed out. If you have the ability to pay the invoices that are coming to you, please do so. If you need to put those off and get the businesses up and running, we totally understand and encourage you to do that as well. Biggest piece, if you need something from us, please don't hesitate to reach out to Mike or Emily. Mike will go into kind of what they've really been involved with, over the last month and kind of talk through where the majority of their time has been spent. Hopefully that'll be beneficial. We really feel like our organization is on the forefront of kind of driving the reopening and doing it in a safe manner to where we're not having to re-implement restrictions. The other piece, I think, we as an organization, I think we feel like it's an important time to lean into issues that are facing our community. With that in mind, I'd like to kind of read a communication with where we stand as an organization and how we'll continue to operate, as the events of 2020 continue to kind of face us as a region and as a nation. And then after that, we'll turn it over to Mike. And again, Mike and I have had a number of conversations kind of around the events and COVID and everything else. So the word that we as a community and culture have grown accustomed to using this year is unprecedented. As the sun sets on each day, we all seem to wait for a return to some form of normalcy that we can be comfortable living in, relying on, and is predictable so that we can begin to once again busy our lives with events and plans for the next week, month, and year. The COVID-19 virus for many of us has derailed plans across all facets of our lives, both business and personal, vacations, weddings, graduation ceremonies, and disrupted businesses that many have spent their lives building. In many ways, the COVID pandemic has brought communities and leaders together to collaborate in a fight against the spread, especially to our most vulnerable residents. All of us have lost sleep over the last couple months, putting in long hours, racking our brain on how to function in an environment that some days is changing by the minute. The Alliance staff has been in the trenches trying desperately to get accurate information out to our membership and community. We've collaborated with many other organizations and municipalities to support our local and regional economy, and we'll continue to do so. We hope that our efforts continue to be valuable to the community that we all love, as we'll continue to direct our energy towards supporting the economic vitality of our region. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "All progress is precarious, and the solution of one problem brings us face to face with another problem." With the events that have occurred in recent weeks, the attention of our nation and economic recovery has now been shared, if not overshadowed, by the long familiar problem we as a nation have yet to fully address. The Economic Development Alliance feels it is important to acknowledge and hear the voices that are asking our nation for equality, for every human being to be treated as an equal, regardless of race, religion, or orientation. We'll continue to work to build a strong, stable, and diverse economy where we welcome the voice of people from all races and genders equally. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. also said, "All labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence." The Alliance will continue on our mission to seek economic vitality and will do so while uplifting humanity with dignity. At this point, I'll hand it over to Mike to go through the Executive Director updates.
Thank you, Jameson. And good morning to everybody. Appreciate you being with us this morning. The Governor's Office has really stepped up their pace and begun combining sectors under headers to address reopening. We've received some favorable news concerning our key industries in the last couple of weeks. with announcements of reopening of the ski resorts, in-person dining, and the most recent announcement that came Friday of Phase 3 Safer at Home in the vast great outdoors. This was the Sixth Amendment to the Safer at Home Order 2028, and we received some favorable guidelines in terms of outdoor recreation, which included addressing house of worship, gyms, pools, outfitters, and scenic railroad. We had been working vigorously on a variance in collaboration with a couple of industries, a couple of organizations, including the train and the county, and we'll find out hopefully today if we need to move forward with the variance for the train, or if the variance will be scaled back to just include indoor malls, public gatherings, and a couple of other things. It's pretty imperative that we get the train open safely with the numbers that enable them to operate under proper guidelines. And I'd like to just take a moment to say hats off to Jeff and his team, who've worked very diligently on a risk mitigation plan, a very comprehensive plan that goes above and beyond what most industries are using today as guidelines. Next slide, please. The San Juan Basin Health has modified their self-certification process for the Amendment 2028, and they're working with organizations and require that every single organization go through the self-certification process to reopen. They have modified their self-certification process in some cases by sector. If you need more information on this in terms of guidelines, you can go to San Juan Basin Health website, or you can also go to Southwest CODA, that's swcoda.org, which is now listed most of the guidelines by sector in their business resource section. Next slide, please. Last week, we took a big step forward in recovery with several announcements. It was a really big week for us. Mary will discuss some of the PPP modifications, but the PPP flexibility bill finally passed and was signed by the president. It's very favorable to most businesses that either opened late or have not spent their entire PPP yet. And again, Mary will cover that in a little bit more detail. There was a surprise this month in the job report, which I think everybody has seen, that has fueled a run on the stock market. I haven't seen what it's done this morning, but yesterday it was up again after a big rally on Friday. The numbers reported for the first time a decrease in unemployment from 14.7 nationwide to 13.7, and advertised that there was 2.5 million jobs added in the month of May. La Plata unemployment numbers as of the end of April, we don't have May numbers yet, is 13.3% at just above 3,800. As stated, we received the Sixth Amendment to Order 2028, announcing the third phase of recovery, and the numbers for La Plata real estate came out, and they're looking very, very bullish. The numbers now are exceeding 2019 numbers for single-family listings as well as sales. There's more information, and this is covered in some detail by Dan Gorman in a Durango News video, which you can find online. And Max Hutchison has also posted this on his blog and on LinkedIn, a little bit more detail in terms of our real estate report. As of yesterday, the NASDAQ reached an all-time high, and the Dow had gotten to a barrier that, or to a mark that erased all the losses from 2020. Next slide, please. In terms of the major initiatives that we're focused on and taking taking a good hard look at. The land use code is out. Clyde will probably, Commissioner Church will probably talk a little bit about this, but our objective is to review this in detail. Commissioner Church has provided us with a summary of the land use code, which we'll distribute to our membership, but we'll do some additional work and then provide a formal review to our membership for discussion. The Planning Process Improvement Committee is going to get reorganized. We have not met for a couple of months for obvious reasons, but this committee is going to be downsized significantly. I have spoken to Chuck Stevens at the county, as well as Kevin and Alex and Scott at the city, and we all are in agreement that we'll bring a stronger focus on La Posta and the URA implementation into that committee and look for an outcome in terms of more slanted towards the URA. Workforce development. We had guest speakers a couple of months ago regarding the Forest Health and the MRI. That program has now been funded. The Forest Service has actually hired a project manager. If you recall, that's $10 million over the course of the next 10 years. So we need to start shifting gears and go into workforce development, and we'll start having a meeting regarding workforce development for the folks that can execute against that federal contract within the next month. So thank you to Ellen Roberts for continuing to drive that initiative, along with Aaron Kimple from Mountain Studies Institute. With the modifications of many business models and more people working from home, we believe that there's an increase in the number of location-neutral workers, and have decided to put a recruitment program in place in partnership with Visit Durango. So the intention here is to take existing assets that Rachel has that are come visit, come stay, and look to attract some of those folks that might be looking to leave larger urban environments. We'll target specifically areas that have direct flights into Durango. That includes Dallas, Denver, Phoenix, potentially Chicago, and obviously Albuquerque. We have also been spending a ton of time on variants. Some of that has already been addressed by the new order, but some of it has not. I think one of our biggest priorities right now is the train, as it's one of the bigger rocks for our economic engine, and we're diligently following that. And Jeff and Mr. May will have an update on that as well. In terms of the task force, that is still extremely active. It's now really focused on sectors. Emily will talk a little bit about manufacturing, but what we've decided to do is modify the fall summit and change this year to a series of sector-focused events. We don't have a schedule yet. We're still outlining what that might look like. We'll probably lean on the task force to help us heavily and make sure that we figure out how to still bring value to our business community and do so in maybe a different fashion, but do a deeper dive into specific industries. And last but not least, the sewer study. I'm going to have Emily, if you can unmute, add some color to this and give a quick update both on what we're doing with the manufacturers group as well as the sewer study.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, everybody. A couple things with the manufacturers. We held a webinar with them to give them some resources that they needed rather rapidly. And the good thing that I can report that's coming back out of it is we are using some of their national contacts or worldwide contacts to secure a large sum of hand sanitizer and N95 masks. And they are working together to try to bring us in a large amount so our community can have their needs met. So that's really rolling nicely, and I couldn't be more pleased with the way that's going. As for the sewer alignment study, SEH Russell Engineering has completed their initial plan of the sewer alignment. There will be a properties owners meeting on tomorrow, Wednesday the 10th at 4 p.m. If anyone would like to attend that, please email me at emily@eslpc. And then as for the summit, I just want to add one little shiny piece that if in the fall that we are allowed to publicly gather with more than 10 people, we will hold a networking event that will hopefully knock your socks off and we can all come together, even if we have to have 4 different locations. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Emily. That concludes the staff report. So we have a long agenda. Jameson, if it's okay with you, I'll just immediately hand it over to Councillor Noseworthy.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Could you pull the slides up for me, please?
Yes, ma'am.
So if we can just go through, perfect, thanks. So I just wanted to cover a few points today. The first, we'll talk about the projected revenue and that impact on the city budget. We'll talk a little bit about just the operational impacts that have happened, some orders, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation and the progress with that, city manager search, and then end with just a brief information on the Main Avenue reconfiguration and turn that over to Tim eventually. So on the sales tax, as soon as the market started dropping and then the COVID orders came, a group of the municipalities got together and made some estimate projections on the decline in sales tax. And they were pretty severe. They actually planned for a negative 70% drop in sales for April and May. And our sales tax are month lagged by a month. So May's sales tax numbers are actually April's sales tax. So, so what we found is that if you look at the top, the May numbers, so April sales, we anticipated those being 70% below our budget, and they actually came in at 15% below. So that's the good news in all of this. And so we're continuing to monitor this pretty closely. We have made some changes to our budget because we were prepared for anywhere from an $8 to $12 million reduction in expenditures in our general fund. But because the sales tax is not as dire as we had predicted, we're now looking at more like a 6.8 decline in dollars. That was as of June 1, with a $4.3 million reduction that we'll need to make in expenditures in our general fund. Could you go to the next slide, please? So what that really means, so what we did immediately is, well, first of all, we laid off, go back to the last slide just a minute. Thank you. We laid off the people that, part-time workers in areas that were closed, like the rec center and other areas, the library. And we'll be working to bring those back as we open up. But we did do a 20% furlough for all non-essential staff. And that's basically, they're taking Fridays off. And that includes our 3 appointees, the city manager, the city attorney, and the judge, as well as all of city council. So we all took a reduction in pay in that regard. The city services that are still considered essential are the water, sewer, transportation, streets, airport, general government, planning, community development, and we'll be looking at possibly adding in some of the finance people coming off furlough and going back into that. Library still doing curbside, but it was been closed pretty much since March 16th, I believe. And the recreation programs are still closed. We'll be looking at the operation, bringing those back. Next slide. So we have done some orders to assist in the recovery. We have a sales tax deferral. We've got the sign code relaxation on Main Avenue, help with utility bills, 25% parking modification for commerce on private property, and then there'll be an upcoming right-of-way along Main Avenue. So those are some of the things we've done. With the sales tax, We've had 49 requests for sales tax deferrals. 9 businesses did not qualify under the outline of the order, and that's resulted in about $50,000 in deferral to date. So that's been going on. 2 other issues: the Colorado Bureau of Investigation is still ongoing. It's a pretty thorough process that's been slowed down by the COVID restrictions. But I do want to always report that it is still underway. It is not finished or on complete hold. It is moving forward. Also, on the search for the city manager, Slavin Management is the search firm handling that. And I believe we received about 55 applications. They went through a prioritization and sent all of city council what they considered their top 10. All of them they viewed as being qualified and for us to consider. Each individual council member ranked his or her, ranked the 10 top finalists in according to his or her priority, and sent those in independently. Now Slavin is kind of pulling that all together, and they'll be coming back to us with any consistencies of what we've seen. We'll then go into a deeper dive on maybe our top 5, and then we'll be looking at how to bring them along. And what I will say is that I was very pleased with the quality and of the expertise and the experience of several of the top candidates. I thought they were highly qualified, and I'm looking forward to learning more about them. And then the last thing I'll just say is on the Main Avenue recovery, we are working with BID and others in the city to do some lane reconfigurations so that we can make more space available for restaurants to have outdoor seating. And so I won't go into that in great detail because I know Tim's going to speak about it. And that's all I have, Mike.
Thank you, Councilor Noseworthy. We'll move to Tim Walsworth. He's Executive Director of our Business Improvement District.
Well, good morning. Thanks for having me. Nice to see everybody. Jameson, you said at the beginning that the Alliance is kind of on the forefront of this reopening. That's true. I've had the pleasure of working with Mike and Emily a lot lately, and they're awesome. You got a great staff, and they're doing great things, and we're all going to keep it up. So let me talk quickly about this Main Avenue reconfiguration. This kind of starts with the need for restaurants and some retail too to have a little more space for their customers, for their guests. It also looks at how being outside is a good thing for us right now, and you combine those two things and make some new space outside, and it really adds to the vibrancy of downtown. And so this is not a full closure of Main. This is essentially bump outs from the curb for businesses that want them. This will be contained within College to 11th Street, and we'll be creating about 11 new spaces within that 5-block area for businesses to operate in. Some parking remains on every block, and there'll be about 50 total spaces. Fine-tuning some of the details here today and tomorrow, but about 50 spaces that will be parking spaces along Main that will be traded for this bump out concept. None of those are ADA spaces. All of those remain where they are, which is a good thing. So this requires us to reconfigure Main to allow this to happen. And so go to the next slide real quick. And I think we have a little image here of how this is going to look. Yeah, you can go one more. There you go, right there. And so this is kind of a little generic template for how the blocks will be configured. And in some cases, there'll be more than just 3 spaces remaining, right? So this just kind of shows you how it can lay out across these blocks in downtown. But what it will require is going from 4 lanes down to 3 lanes downtown. And so you see that right here. You'll have 1 lane north, 1 lane south, and then a dedicated left turn lane, a center lane in the middle. There'll be a little buffer about 4 feet between the traffic and the actual space that the businesses will use. We'll use things like the city's parade barricades, a bunch of cones, some planters and flowers for aesthetics, but also for safety to keep people safe. And what you see here, these two little orange things on the ends of these spaces where the traffic is oncoming, those are these giant crash barriers that are filled with water. They weigh about 2 tons when they're completely filled with water. And so that will really provide the safety that the city engineers want to see for this space here. Traffic will slow down tremendously with this new configuration that will address some of those concerns and some of the noise concerns. If you're in downtown, you hear how loud it can be. So that will be addressed just by simply narrowing the space a little bit. There's been prior studies done for exactly this kind of reconfiguration of Main. And really what they show from a traffic perspective is that going to 3 lanes does not affect the flow of traffic. We won't have massive backups downtown, even when we're busy, like we hope we are in July this year. So CDOT, city engineers, fire, police, parking, utilities, stormwater, planning, and bid, we've all signed off on this concept. I did a survey of bid businesses, got a great response rate and one of the highest positive set of responses I've ever received on surveys. 77% of the respondents were in support of the concept. And so that gave me confidence to advance it forward. So here's kind of the timing of things. What's going to happen, I believe, starting late tonight, early tomorrow morning, is the restriping of Main to fit this 3-lane configuration. They need to scrape off all the old lines. Then they need to come in and do a really solid street cleaning. And then they need to lay down some new paint. That will take probably at least 2 and probably 3 nights. And so what that leads us to is this Friday morning, very early, we're going to start building these block by block, again, College to 11th. And if all works well, businesses will be able to start using this Friday afternoon or Friday evening. 2 last things. We'll evaluate this constantly. If it's not working, if something needs to change, if we need to expand a space to add in a new business or contract it because a business doesn't want it, we can do that. And we will do that. That's super important because this is a big deal for downtown. And then last thing, there will be a permit process for businesses to use this new space. That permit is like this close to being done, and I expect that to be released today or tomorrow. And so businesses will have a little jump start on it. They'll have to fill out the form that allows them to use the public right of way. And then that form will double for restaurants for those that want to serve alcohol out in that space. There's a process there that the state has created to amend the boundaries of the business's liquor license, and that will all be included in this form. Turn that around 24 to 48 hours. And so hopefully we're going to see this start to be activated Friday afternoon, Friday evening. And so that's what we got.
Tim, I appreciate the update. There was a question out there related to the rationale on why we stopped this at 11th Street and didn't extend it down to 12th Street, that we're missing a couple restaurants down in that block, if you could address that.
Yeah, sure. So the striping will actually go all the way. The reconfiguration of 3 lanes will go all the way to 13th Street. And so there's two places that this might work for from 11th to 12th. It's 11th Street Station, and it's the business formerly known as Cantera. They're in process of changing their model. And so we'll work with them if they need some outdoor space when they're ready. Out there on Main, they can. 11th Street Station has a lot of outdoor space already. It's how they built it. But if they want to extend out there, we'll work with them. And same thing with Cantera. Again, that business is changing. They do have a back patio that they can use too. And then the next one would be, it's called Primi Pasta and Wine Bar. It was formerly Guido's right there at 12th and Main on that, what is that, northwest corner. They have a big outdoor patio too, but if they want to extend out onto Main, we'll be able to do that. But the initial build is where we have more of a concentration of businesses, not just 1 or 2 on a block. And then we'll work with any business that's on Main that wants it or doesn't want it, or off Main. We have all kinds of plans for the rest of them.
Super. I appreciate it, Tim. Thank you. We'll move over to the town of Ignacio with Sharon Craig.
Good morning from Ignacio. We're still kind of opening up, and one of the most exciting things is Foxfire Winery. Their winery has opened up. They have a huge lawn, so they're able to seat a lot of people, and their Friday night concerts will still be going on. They've added some Saturday afternoon concerts. And one of our restaurants, KD's, is taking their barbecue on the road, and they're going to be catering for Foxfire. So that's exciting for us. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Sharon. We'll move back to Ashley Tarkington, Mayor of Bayfield.
Hi, yeah, Bayfield has pretty much been business as usual this whole time. When this first hit, we were all expected to face at least a 25% budget cut in all of our departments, and it hasn't been that way at all. Actually, our sales tax figures, if you want to move to the next slide, have been consistently up at least 25% in both March and April. So that's good news. We haven't had to cut any of our projects out of our planning. In fact, we added a project now that we can afford it. Since our Parks and Rec is canceled, we're going to do our irrigation project in the field that's been on hold for a couple of years because we've never had time to really do it. You know, we're back in the boardroom, which is nice. Our courts are reopening on the 18th, which is good. We have a few things that have been stacking up. From everyone I talked to around town, at least every business is finally back open at some capacity as of the weekend. Places of worship, they're still trying to figure it out, how they're gonna accommodate those kind of groups. They're talking about doing phases, having a morning session and maybe an afternoon session. Our 4th of July is canceled. We're still trying to figure out how to at least get the town some fireworks. Right now we're working with the fire department on, you know, that's more of a fire ban at this point. And, you know, the good news is not one single business in Bayfield has closed their doors for good through all this. Everybody hung through this pretty well. And I think, you want to do the next slide? I think everyone's heard by now, longtime resident, longtime Bayfield Marshal, tragic accident over the weekend, the passing of Jim Harrington. And this will be an interesting one. I know his services are this weekend at La Platte's Pond. We did have San Juan Basin Health reach out to our town to say, you know, if you guys need some guidance on how to get, we understand this is going to be a huge gathering on how to control that kind of crowd. So that'll be interesting. I know the organizers are trying to work and figure this out so that they can have a service for him. But yeah, we're in good shape. Basically, we feel good about where we're at, and that's what I got.
Great, thank you, Ashley. Thoughts and prayers go out to the Jim's family and the community of Bayfield. It's a big loss. We're going to move the agenda around just a little bit. I know Tom Stridicus, president of Fort Lewis, has an engagement that he needs to get to, so we'll actually bump him up and let him go ahead and give an update right now. Tom, you out there?
I'm here. I'll go fast. Appreciate the time. Jameson and Michael, thanks for your leadership on that statement. I think the conversation certainly we've been having on campus around the experience of our students of color, particularly African-American students, both on the campus and in the broader community, is an important one for us to engage with. So we look forward to continuing that conversation and moving it to action. Second, we will be open in the fall for in-person instruction, working with San Juan Basin Public Health and the governor on that. We will have students in the residence hall. We will have some aspect of student life, and we will have some aspect of face-to-face instruction. We're working on that plan right now. Will likely include some aspect of testing for students, as well as social isolation protocols. Have been working with local motels for some overflow space, so we appreciate the collaboration we've been getting from the business community on that. So thank you. The state, as you know, faces a multi-billion-dollar shortfall based on revenue taxes and unemployment claims. That's impacting higher ed rather dramatically. This year, all governing boards across the state of Colorado are taking a 5% cut from the state, and with out-year implications being potentially more severe. The college has been going through a very transparent, open process to take a look at how we want to manage that. We will not be doing across the board cuts. We are doing some very strategic reductions in areas, primarily looking at integrating services, reducing silos, and taking a hard look at things that the college does that do not directly benefit students. What I can say is we will look a little different in the fall, but 100% the student experience will not change. Lastly, the underlying conditions for us look great. Some of these numbers we don't believe, but our freshman class this year is larger than it's been in many years. Great job with our local superintendents sending students to us. So shout out to Kevin A10 and Dan Snowberger and Rocco. We really appreciate that. And our retention rate is much stronger than it's been. So we'll have a little choppy waters because of the shortfall and managing COVID in an educational situation, but the long-term trajectory could not be stronger. As usual, anyone can find me at president@fortlewis.edu for questions or conversations. Like all of you, pretty much working nonstop, so a phone call is always appreciated.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom, for your leadership up there.
You bet.
We'll move to Commissioner Clyde Church for an update from the county.
Good morning, everybody. The issue that has been at the forefront of the county, several of them actually. One is getting the variances applied for businesses. Those are in Denver, and we are waiting on letters of support from a number of mandatory agencies, and we expect to get that soon. We're working diligently on it. To build on Tim's discussion about relayout of Main Street, I want to remind everybody that the county parking lots on 11th and 2nd are open after 5 o'clock for public parking. And so there's the parking lot at the administration building, also one across from the courthouse at the old Schluter building. Financially, the county has a broader underpinning of financing than many other organizations in the state, and we're in good condition. We're planning to continue on with our planned expenditures. We hopefully will underrun it a little bit, but that's yet to be seen. We're continuing on with capital projects and finishing those off. So we don't want to pull back on the budget. That would impact the community, the county negatively from an employment standpoint, and concerned about it. Also passed a resolution, land use permit modification, complying with the state, and it allows expanded outside use of alcohol services in restaurants and bars, and that is applied through the county for unincorporated portions of the county, similar to what is going on here in Durango. It's extended out. So with that, the other big project that we have is a new land use code, and it has come out very recently. County has held a series of workshops, had 4 workshops so far to engage the public so people understand what the land use code is and what it isn't, to answer questions and to clarify and talk about the structure and some of the issues that could be out there that we want to detect early. We have 2 coming up this week, June 9th from 6 to 7 o'clock, and Wednesday, June 10th from 11:30 a.m. In the morning. So we have morning and evening sessions. This one will be more for developers, significant development, commercial, industrial subdivisions, things that are well beyond what anybody subdividing a lot into 3 pieces would run into there. So the goals we set a while back was reconcile and clarify land use code, provide for predictability and certainty in the process, facilitate and direct growth to appropriate areas, improve and review the review process. This is shortening the cycle down, streamline the process, protect and respect the county's most valued assets, and minimize sprawl. Some things that may be of particular interest. We've added Ag Plus, so businesses can start on agricultural property without a land use permit in most cases, but check with the planning department. Clustered rural development is a good step forward. I think, and it would allow 2 lots for every 35-acre increment. And this is a difference, it respects the open spaces. And many of our district plans came back saying they want to maintain that agricultural feel. Economic development areas, and that's areas like Gem Village. They grew naturally. They're historically a growth area. They have water, they have sewer, and it's just a no-brainer there that these are the places people want to be. So the land use code allows and facilitates that. We want to shorten up the review process and streamline that. Also, compatibility is defined and determined up front. This is a big change. Used to go through a development process and find out if you're compatible at the end of the process after you've invested quite a bit of money in your project. Now we're going to do it with a sketch plan up front. And getting that clearly defined will help, I think, economic development in the whole region. Clear standards. We've had just a scattering of standards in the past. This was passed, the original land use permit process was developed in 1990 and has been added on since then and is now being clarified, reorganized, and meeting some of the new requirements for legal language. Planned unit developments, administrative phasing of very large projects can reduce the number of public hearings required. Depends on the complexity of the project. Also, affordable housing has been clarified. Road level service has been clarified and expanded, and registered district advisory committees. And the district advisory committees are a way of the county getting feedback on changes and applications to the land use code. So with that, I thank you very much. And that's the top of the county work list here.
We appreciate the update, Commissioner Church. Obviously, the Alliance has been largely involved in the land use code the last couple of years. And then I know Mike and Emily have spent a considerable amount of time helping out with the variance piece. So we appreciate the partnership with the county.
We'd like you to stay engaged also. Thank you.
You got it. We'll move over to Nate Duckett, the mayor of the city of Farmington. We had him on our last Alliance meeting last month, and I think the information he provided was super valuable. So Nate, welcome back.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to join you all again. And it's a beautiful windy day here in the Four Corners, so we're looking forward to some cooler weather over the next few days. The governor of New Mexico has opened up San Juan County and Northwest New Mexico, including McKinley and Cibola counties, at the same level that she has opened up the rest of the state. This was effective on June 1st. So we are at 50% capacity for restaurants and retail. Our salons and barbershops are open. You can use the swimming pools for lap lane swimming only, as well as a number of other things. So for the majority, most businesses are open to some capacity, and we're excited about the opportunity to get things rolling again here in Farmington. We have opened up our library as well, effective this past Monday. That was a big deal for us in the area, and we're trying to push to get our museum open. We have a NFL Hall of Fame exhibit here. It's been here since the week before we closed everything down. So we'd like to be able to get the public out and be able to view that before it leaves here in September. But the governor's made a statement that essentially phase 2 would not start for the state until July 1. So as we sit right now, we've still got a number of days before we get to that next level. Positive cases for COVID-19 here are on a downward trend. We did have a little bump up yesterday, but we're happy to see that the people are taking responsibility for themselves. The COVID safe practices have been rolled out. Businesses have adopted those, similar to our conversation last month as far as things that were happening in Durango. Businesses here, of course, are requiring masks and other things for their employees as well as their customers. So we've appreciated the leadership of the number of businesses that have remained open during this time, kind of leading the way and showing people how to get it done. A couple of items I just wanted to make sure I shared here. The Bureau of Land Management in Farmington, their office here has been working with us hand in hand in San Juan County in developing some outdoor recreation assets for us. And so I wanted to kind of just let you know we're going to be adding about 8 additional miles of bike trails to our Anasazi Bike Park. It is an exclusive bike park only. It is cable and posted, cordoned off from the other parts of the recreation management plan for the Glade Run area. And we're excited to see that start. Trail should start July 1st being implemented in there. We have a number of projects that we're looking at this year and the next 2 years for outdoor recreation, including the completion of our river trails. We have a plan to add, that's about 10 miles of river trail along the Animas. And hopefully we're still going to have that money available as we go into 2021. But that project was planned to be completed by 2022, as well as a complete overhaul of the Pinyon Hills Golf Course. A number of upgrades to Pinyon Hills Golf Course, including new cart trails, new sprinkler systems, things of that nature. But we'll see how that goes. State of New Mexico is anticipating a 1.7 to $2.4 billion deficit going into this next year. Obviously, we're going to be keeping a close eye on those things. We had one project that was impacted here locally as funds were removed from municipalities if the funds were not already allocated and being spent on the projects that they were given for. So we did have one stormwater project that did not get completed. Our downtown project continues to run smoothly. We are almost completed with phase 1. And so I encourage you all to come down and check out the newly renovated area that's going to allow for much greater outdoor seating for our businesses. We're going to have 15-foot sidewalks on either side of the street. We've taken it from a 4-lane road down to a 2-lane road with a good buffer zone between the parking area and the streetway. We've taken out all the street lights and added in a couple of roundabouts down in the area and upgraded all the landscaping, lighting. We've put free Wi-Fi for everybody, and updated our sound system. So actually the street lights, the pedestrian lights that'll be in there will also have speakers on them. So looking forward to the parades and the Christmas season and how that all comes together with our newly renovated Civic Center. So lots of good things happening here in the city of Farmington. And we're always on the up and up, and just appreciate your all support. As far as greater, broader looks at economic development, we've obviously come to an agreement with the Navajo Nation, San Juan County, working with them in a partnership, kind of a work group to bring railroad to Northwest New Mexico. Make comment on this at times to people that if you look at a map of our state, the northwest corner is barren when it comes to transportation options. We believe that a railroad would obviously encourage some big investments up here in regards to the use of natural gas for other products. And so we hope to see this railroad project come to fruition, and the Navajo Nation is there with us as we step into it. There's also a number of energy projects that are being considered right now throughout Northwest New Mexico, including 2 pump storage facilities, a large solar field, and of course, San Juan Generating Station's carbon capture program, which Enchant Energy with the city of Farmington and New Mexico Tech have received a $22 million grant for the sequestration component of the CO2 project. So that is some good news, and hopefully continue this path forward to secure some energy jobs here in Northwest New Mexico, some clean energy jobs, and keep our people working, and keep a purpose for people to come to our area for high-paying jobs. City of Farmington is concerned right now. Obviously, we're in a drought, as I'm sure we're all aware. We have looked at the past 2 council meetings at the potential of going into a phase 1 drought restrictions. We're continuing to kind of hold off on that. We just seem to go from one type of crisis to another type of crisis, and so we're able to manage that currently. The river is flowing, and so long as the river continues to flow and Lake Farmington is full, we feel good. Lake Farmington is open for recreation. I had the great opportunity of going up to Lake Nighthorse a couple of weekends ago with my family. Beautiful, just a beautiful recreation area, and love to see the parking lots full of people, and just appreciate the continued high quality of life that we share in this area. I didn't bring a whole lot of other information for you all, but if I can ever be of assistance, please reach out to me. My email is nduckett@fmtn.org. Thank you.
We appreciate the update, Mayor Duckett. We'll move to Jeff Johnson. He's General Manager of the Durango-Silverton Narrow Gauge Railway, and he'll give an update kind of on their reopening process. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you very much. I'm kind of piggybacking Mike May here on the phone. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you okay, Jeff. If there's any way you can get a little bit closer, it'd probably be beneficial.
Okay. Well, Mike, that's probably all here. Mike's going to join me here for a moment. I thank you all for this opportunity to be on this call. And I right away want to give a very heartfelt thank you and shout out to Mike and to Emily with the Alliance, also to Chuck from the county and everyone from the county, and to the commissioner who also joined us a few weeks ago, Julie Westendorf, at our meetings, Jack Llewellyn from the city. There have been a lot of people that have really helped us work through some ideas, navigate, and not just ideas, but be very proactive in working on how we can be back in business at the Durango and Silverton Railroad. The last train we operated was the day before St. Patrick's Day, March 16th, and from that point forward, and actually just slightly prior to that, we began to contract our business, obviously, like everybody, for economic viability, to be able to sustain ourselves. And that netted basically 114 employees who were furloughed. And it's been a goal from ours from the very beginning to craft a business model that would work to be able to move forward and to open again. In the midst of all of this, we created a committee ourselves for American Heritage Railways, which encompasses all of the companies within that American Heritage owns, obviously, including our holdings in North Carolina and Washington, and Rail Events and Rail Events Productions, and trying to put together a proper, thoughtful way to go back into business and to be in compliance with obviously the ordinances, and also to be thoughtful and working for the community. We've worked on a very strategic plan as far as the Durango Silverton goes, to be able to operate likely from Rockwood to Cascade Canyon, and we're also looking at some options if any way possible we can be serving San Juan County as soon as possible as well. In putting all of this together, the biggest challenge we've faced, as some on this call are well aware of, is the unique footprint of a narrow gauge train, and how to fit this into complying with the regulations that we're faced with right now. And it has been a real challenge to navigate through this. We've put together, as I said, a very comprehensive plan of how we can navigate through it, and consider some things we can do, where there are some things with social distancing that is a real struggle with our cars, our train cars. We're still working through this process, and it has come to the point now to where we're very thankful to have been in touch with everyone on the local level, including San Juan Basin Health, almost daily now at this point, in addition to representatives from the governor's office, and continuing these conversations. And I feel like we're making some progress and working through what we're going to need to have in order to get back into business. I will say we've not come to any conclusions yet. I think it comes as no surprise that the overhead and operating of the business of running a railroad is extremely high, relatively speaking, and so we've had to be very creative in how we approach this, and to be responsible. And we're trying to just find our way to just be viable, to get back serving the community. I know I speak for the Harpers too, and their goal to be back vibrant, serving the community, and be a part of everything going on in any way possible, and even seeing what we can bear just to make it happen. The biggest struggle right now is just going to be making sure we can comply with the the proper issues of compliance. Mike's on the call with me here too. Mike's the chairman of our committee for American Heritage Railways for our return to business plan amidst COVID. And I invited him here because I thought, Mike, you might want to share a couple of other thoughts for everybody. And I appreciate your engagement and your help and leadership in all this too.
Sure. I guess you kind of summed it up pretty well, but a few things that I'll add is really where we're working through right now is that the way that the Seventh Amendment to Public Health Order 2028 really reads is it's got a lot of language about outdoor recreation, which was intended to include scenic railroads. The problem is there's a lot of details just about the reality of how the railroad operates and the reality of the footprint inside the coaches and how that relates to some of the restrictions that the Seventh Amendment puts out. So what we've been really doing is working directly with the state and with the folks that wrote the intent of the amendment. And we're trying to communicate with them and communicate with San Juan Public Health about some of the realities of it and how we navigate through that so that we can come up with something that's, of course, safe for employees and for guests in the community, but also realistic to just what the railroad looks like. I mean, basically what we're dealing with, and I know we're not the first ones to be here, but we're working with a very unusual footprint and a very unusual type of business so that we don't really fit any of the categories that the public health order is allowed to reopen. There's some of what we're doing works with recreation, some of it looks like retail space, some of it looks like an office building, some of it's manufacturing. So we're trying to navigate our way down all those lanes at one time. So I will say we're definitely making progress. But like Jeff said, we're not at the end of the road just yet. So hopefully we'll have more information on that sooner than later.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And I did want to share that it was our hope to be able to announce opening by the last week of this month, and even perhaps a soft operation by a week from today. I will share that that is not going to be possible, certainly to be open by the 16th in any way, shape, or form. It is not without possibility that we could still be in some sort of operation before the end of the month. But as Mike was sharing, that's going to be contingent upon our conclusions in working with San Juan Basin Health and the state and everybody involved. And we continue to try to find the best way to navigate through it. And we certainly have some options. And we're doing the very best we can. And it's not lost upon us too the impact of the decisions that the railroad makes in how it affects the community and the people from all around the state and neighboring states in the country who are contingent, of which the railroad's contingent on their travel plans. So we're taking that into great consideration as we look at all of our options too. And again, I just want to say a big thank you to Michael, Emily, and everybody that's been involved in helping sort through this, and we'll continue. And thank you. That's all I have.
Super. I really appreciate it, Mike and Jeff. Thanks for the update. We'll move to Dave Rathbun, the General Manager of Purgatory Resort.
Hey, good morning. Thanks, Jamison. Just being really brief here because I too am late for a 9 o'clock appointment. But we'll rip through some of the things we've been up to. I can say that since I prepared my slide for this presentation yesterday, we did get some guidance back from San Juan Basin Public Health that they have some minor questions about the draft operating suppression plan that we put together. So if we can address a few questions that they have, I am extremely confident that we will be reopening for the summer on June the 20th. So I'm confident enough to say that with a fair amount of certainty. So feeling pretty good about that. Just like everybody else, we've been going through in a phased approach, trying to reopen our various businesses. We have businesses down in town, as well as about 7 different businesses that we're in here at the resort. So we are self-certifying each of those businesses when there's guidance available. So things like our retail operation down in town is already open. Motel Durango never closed. And we've already reopened our resort lodging with the exception of the units that we manage up in Cascade Village, which are just over the border. I think everybody knows, up in San Juan County. So that's good news on our front. Obviously been a lot of challenges trying to figure out how to survive like everybody else. We've done that. We've kept all of our year-round employees working during this whole period. We were coming to the end of the winter season, so that saved us a little bit in terms of big dramatic impacts. We were starting that the week after the shutdown occurred. We were starting to phase out some of our seasonal staff at that point. Anyway, a lot of people lost anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks of employment, but that's a lot better than what's happened everywhere else. So at least in that respect, there was a bit of a soft landing for Purgatory, but we're just hopeful that we're going to get back up and running here in the next couple of weeks. And I think that that'll be a positive thing for everybody to at least get outside and do a little more than hike or ride your own bike. You know, we are definitely a little bit different form of summer recreation than just going out on your own. So we still have a lot of work to do to make sure that we provide a safe environment, but we're committed to do so and looking forward to it.
Super appreciate the update, Dave. Obviously, between the train and Purgatory, there are some primary employers in the region and drive a significant amount of tourism to the area. So appreciate you guys. We'll move to Mary Shepard, the Executive Director of the Small Business Development Center. Morning, Mary.
Morning. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'll be quick as well. I just also want to put out a huge shout out to everybody across Southwest Colorado. It's been, I've had a lot of pride in our communities with all the work that's happened, all the collaborative work, all the people, the organizations, our cities and counties being flexible to allow us to really be creative in this time to support our businesses. So thanks to everyone on that. And I had some slides, Mike. Do you have those? Oh, you don't? Okay. So I will just see if I've got them. Do you want me to share them on my end? If you can allow me, hold on one second. I'll just read through them. So I'll just read through them and I'll talk a little bit about the big things, obviously, are the PPP changes that came through the Payroll Protection Program Flexibility Act. So they did the big changes that hopefully are going to help people who were struggling with the forgiveness application. The big ones are the extension. So it's now a 24-week period. So if you have not spent down all of your funds, but see that you could do that over the course of the next, total of 24 weeks, you are able to extend the time period. Also, they changed the percentages. So you now only have to spend 60% on payroll, which brings you up to about 40% on other operating expenses. It also pushed back the deadline to return to full employment levels. It was June 30th. It will now be December 31st. They are easing some of the rehiring requirements. So if you aren't able to get back to being fully open in that time period, you may not have to rehire all of your employees. Or if you can prove that your employees either you couldn't rehire them and you couldn't find anyone to replace them, there's some more leniency there. And then they're extending the term of the loan for the unforgiven balance from 2 years to 5 years. So if you do have a balance at the end of your PPP, it's a little bit easier to manage those payments because they're going to spread it out over a little bit longer period of time. As far as the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan update, they told us there are still about 5 million applications in the queue. I did get some numbers this morning, and we have in Colorado over $1.5 billion in EIDL loans out there. So we did a good job of connecting businesses with these loans. They are currently only taking new applications from ag businesses. Do know that all the money in EIDL is subject to use of proceeds rules, even the EIDL advance money. So there will be at some point a process whereby you will have to certify how you use that money, even the advance grant that went out. There was a little confusion on that, but you will need to show that you were using it for operating expenses for your business. We have those use of proceeds rule if anybody's interested. The SBA will be reaching out to anyone who's received a denial letter. You do have a couple of opportunities if you were denied an EIDL to appeal with SBA. One is just providing whatever information they either are missing or, you know, trigger them to give you a denial. So maybe they just need more information. And then if they still deny you there, you can go to a full appeal process and we can assist any business with that. And there is a process if you've decided you don't want your EIDL advance, if it affects your PPP or for whatever reason, I do have the address and the process if anybody wants to return those funds. And so one other program that's come out through CARES that people may not be aware of is the USDA Rural Development Working Capital Loan Program. So these are loan guarantees, so it'll loan guarantee up to 90%. It is for working capital. It is for rural businesses. Agricultural businesses can also apply, but it's for non-ag businesses. They're up to 10 years. You negotiate the rate with your bank. You can defer the payments, so the interest can be deferred for a year, the principal for up to 3 years. Maximum loan amount is about $25 million. I do have a link if anybody is interested in those loans. So another product that local businesses can tap into. And I did also recently receive notification from the state of Colorado from OEDIT that they're working on a grant program. They will have grant money available for small rural businesses. They're really looking at the businesses that were hit hard by coronavirus. So tourism related, restaurants, they will have some small loans. They're really focusing on businesses of under 25 employees, businesses that weren't able to access other programs. So I'll have more information on that. I'll keep you posted. And again, not only sbdcfortlewis.org for resources, but coloradosbdc.org/COVID and choosecolorado.com/COVID-19. There are great resources for businesses and also additional funding. We're really trying to keep a good working list of funding options for folks. So those would be kind of my big reports. Next Monday, the other big one is next Monday, we are offering, starting our very first Pivot Your Business. So I'm bringing Jasper Welch and Rich Lindblad. We're going to keep them small, so we'll keep offering them, but we really want to bring businesses in to brainstorm together with our consultants and really try and find ways that you can pivot your business. We're also starting to look at some kind of a series on e-commerce so that businesses who've started to break into this and maybe see this as a good, strong revenue stream that they can keep going on the side, want to really buff that out. We're going to be working on building something there as well. So we're here if you need anything business-wise, help, you know, kind of processing the ends of these programs or looking forward on your business, reach out to us. And that's it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mary. I know the PPP and EIDL loans have been a moving target, and we appreciate the clarification that you've been able to bring to the topic. We'll move to Brigham Wrinkle. She's the Executive Director of the Community Foundation. Brigham, do we have you?
Thanks, Jameson. I think I'm on.
There you go. Now we got you, Brigham. Thank you.
Okay, great. So just giving a quick update with the Community Foundation and some of the support we've been giving to nonprofits and the nonprofit sector in Southwest Colorado. So some of you may have heard me on other calls, but I'll just give it to you from the top and I'll go pretty quickly because I know you guys want to wrap up. So rounds 1 and 2 have been response. We have supported nonprofits in 5 counties to the tune of $201,000, all specifically on response. We are in the middle of round 3 with a needs assessment, which we will release next week. We had 100+ applications for support in round 3. We've eliminated almost 40 and 60 will receive the application. United Way and the Community Foundation will work with a committee to select the 35 to 40 organizations for grants. We hope the awards will be between $3,000 and $5,000. We have earmarked $175,000 for round 3, which is a stability round or a recovery round. Concurrently, we have launched Community Concerts Reimagine in Your Secret Garden. We have traditionally, for the last 5 years, had a secret garden party at the Rochester, 10 weeks throughout the summer. Obviously, that can't happen. So we are working with KSUT and KDUR to do a concert on the radio that you can plug in. And we hope that there are 100 secret gardens parties going on across the county. Of course, paying attention to the limit of the numbers that we can have based on San Juan Basin Health, which we don't know what those will be. Those will be July 1st, 8th, and 15th. Simulcast both on KOCT and KDUR. It's an effort dedicated to arts and culture. It is a fundraiser to support the arts and culture, as well as to have those garden parties to maybe lift our spirits a little, give ourselves a little permission to celebrate the arts, which is a integral fabric of our community, and we don't want them to get too wrinkly, so that they can still be here when this is all over. All money raised will go to 10 arts and culture nonprofits. It is a fundraiser trying to break the ice and enable arts and culture to talk to their donors, which they haven't done at this point and haven't been able to receive any money. The last thing that we've done is a few of the nonprofits who applied for round 3 funding were pulled out, about 5 of them, who are going to get some capacity building around planned giving. Money wasn't their first need. They've been very professional, saved some money. They're going to be okay for a while, but we still wanted to give them an opportunity to better their organization and become more and more stable. So been really busy over here just trying to find ways to make sure that we support our nonprofits so that they can be as strong as we need them now in this emergency and in future emergencies. And that wraps me up.
Super, we appreciate the update, Brigham. Our next meeting will be July 14th. Just the way that falls, we'll end up almost in the middle of July, but I mean, I think I speak for the Alliance. I just continue to be so impressed with how our community and our leadership and our local leaders just continue to navigate this environment. There's no doubt that 2020 has been challenging, but Mike and Emily have engaged, I think, with all the right people and continue to reach out to the community with empathy, compassion, and commitment. So we appreciate it, and I'll turn it back to Mike with any closing comments.
Thank you, Jameson. I don't have much to say. I think you summarized it extremely well. A heartfelt thank you to all of our panelists and speakers today. It was a jam-packed. We always try to get this into an hour. On paper, it looks good, and then the information comes out. So hopefully everybody found value. We'll post this on social media and advertise this. We'll also send out an email with the statement that Jameson read at the top of the meeting to our entire membership, which I feel is important, and we'll continue to plug away.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Have a great Tuesday.